So hello, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so we are gonna stream today about the book that I'm reading, and I'm gonna explain that to you. But before that, let me just quickly check if I truly am live right now, right? Because I need to confirm, right? I mean, okay, it does shows that I am live and it's public, and date is June 3. So yeah, I think we are live, right? Like yeah, everything's working fine then. Like we got the chat, we got the studio here. So yeah. Okay, let me just type hi in chat for some reason. Hello guys. Even though there's literally no one in the chat, but we can do that thing, right? Like it just feels good to do for some reason. But yeah, so this is the YouTube channel I created, you know, which is like which has to do a lot with books, and not exactly with the books, but models that explains reality. Because like I've been like, if you can just look at the background, like I've been reading for a long time, like for a long time, like for the last 5 6 or something like that years. But what I did realize is that over time, and everyone do realize, I guess, some books are catastrophically better than other books. Some book explains a lot of stuff about reality and allows you to understand it compared to other books, and they give you a lot more edge than different books. Like we have always seen, like we start like, okay, there's books like which are really famous, like Deep Work, Atomic Habits, and something like that. That are surface level books. They feel good or really advanced to someone who's just starting to read out. But over time, as you read a lot of books, you start to realize there's few books which is so much better than these basics books. But it's like no one talks about them because either they're too complex, either like, they take a lot of discipline or something like that to even start doing, or they're just like, obscure, like no one knows about them, right? So but ChatGPT, one of my friends, ended up helping me a lot in order to find these books, right? And actually, when you do start to compare the topics and the things these books talks about, and then you start to compare them with simple books that goes really while like, there was this like Body Keeps the Score, Trauma Psychology, back then, like about a couple of years ago. It was really famous. But so these books, they're really simple, like to the person who's just starting out, they're extremely great. But over time, when you generally have a lot of understanding about the world, these books just doesn't do the job anymore. So that's what I did, because I like, it's in this like streaming series, because I would be streaming the entire journey. So what we are going to be doing is, for 1,000 days, that's probably about a decade, or because I would be streaming like not a half a decade, not a decade actually. I would be streaming about 200 days a year or something, or like 150 to 200 days. Right, because I have another account, and in that account, I would be streaming coding for 150 to 200, like 150 days, I mean, or something like that, 150 to 175 days. So it would take us probably about 5 or 6 years to complete this journey of like understanding reality. And like, yeah, so this another channel also has like the same thing, but in that, where we'll be building systems from these books and from what I've read from like coding and all that stuff, like, from Python and things like that. So that is entirely different journey going on there. Right. So the main focus is like build systems to earn money. That's like the focus of that channel. And the focus of this channel is to just understand reality better so that you get leverage over time. Right. Because one of the things that people don't realize with books is that books compound the hardest. You have capital that compounds over the years, you have skills that compounds, you have like, but if one of the things that compounds the hardest, especially in this generation, is like is books, right? Because you go around and see all these CEOs and all these millionaires, if not billionaires, they claim that they've read a lot of books, they at least read a couple of books a year, right? Because like what books does, because it's not essentially about the books, it's about the model that the books provide. So it's like people have invested decades of hard work, or like, understanding onto something, and then you get that decade of understanding in just a couple of minutes, right? So, and you don't have to do the all the hard work to actually get that information. But just imagine, like, if each like, each new individual that came out has to actually discover the laws of physics by themselves again and again, and only then they can proceed. It's just so much better to actually get it from the Newton, start applying it, start doing it, start building something out of it, right? So yeah, so that is what I have to say. So like, let me show you my kind of like a screen. Right, because we would be reading this book called Thinking in Systems today. And so the essential format of the, what should I say? The stream would be something like I stream it, right? Read it for about a half or 1 hour, and then I explain the entire thing, connect the dots between multiple subjects, right? And then I read again, and then I explain again, something like that, continuously going for 4 to like minimum to 2 hours, maximum to 4 to 5 hours a day. Because then after that, I have gym and coding stuff and different stuff and family and stuff like that. So I won't be able to do it all day long, right? So yeah. So let me just open up. Yeah. is there a way to open like a Obsidian onto like a multiple screen so that in one screen you guys can see what I want you to show, in one screen I can just take notes or see what I want to see? Right. I mean, there has to be a plugin for that, right? Multiple. Let me just ask GPT if he knows about any of this. Okay, GPT is my best friend if you don't know. When it comes to work, not when it comes to social life. Yeah, but it's okay. Okay. Okay, ChatGPT, is there a plugin out there that actually allows me to, open up multiple tabs of the Obsidian onto like a multiple screens, like just like how you can do in Chrome? Like, because I have this one tab that I want to open up in another, like I want to take out the window and split it or something like that you do with the edge, right? I think there should be one. Let's just hope there is one. It's searching the web. You don't need a plugin anymore. Obsidian has a built-in feature to pop out of windows. You can just drag a node outside the main Obsidian window, and it becomes a completely separate window that you can move in another monitor. What? Obsidian has that feature from the start? You kidding me? Oh, Obsidian has that feature from the start. I thought you needed a plugin. Damn, damn, damn. I thought you needed a plugin. Oh, it's because if you just take the window and actually put it in front of the screen, it never skims out. For that, you need to have like either minimize the Obsidian or something. It's not as easy as the window. Oh, that's why I never actually realized that I did have that, like Obsidian had that feature, because each time you kind of drag the tab, it just opens up at the multiple side, just like how we have in VS Code, right? The same thing happens with this shit, right? Okay, which is like, yeah, thank you, ChatGPT, buddy. Okay, so yeah. Let me just add another tab then. Okay, my eyes feel itchy for some reason. Open today's daily note. I think I can do the same thing with everything, right? And then I can just add them into okay. Yes, adding it here. So now we got a couple of things that we only need to see. Um, yeah, so we got things that only we need to see on a different screen here, so that you guys don't have to unnecessarily pay attention to things you shouldn't be paying attention to. All right, and I got the chat here too, and I think I need to do what they call control. I think I need multiple monitors. I think I need 5 or 6 monitors for this fucking stream. I just have 2 monitors. That's a hot. I think for streaming you need 3 monitors, like one for their like just the streaming thing you can see, and the one for like other stuff that you're gonna do. Because like yeah, right. Because I think when I'm gonna be like coding or something, like I generally use 2 screen for coding, right? And then it's gonna have a little bit of problem with that stuff too. So yeah, I think you guys can also heard that sound, right? Yeah, you guys can hear it. It's like what they call is like power toys. Like you can download that, and it allows you to actually do some little bit good things with the Windows, right? Which is a good thing, honestly. Yeah, so we got that done. I think now I can finally change the screen and show you my screen, right? So I think screen is pretty visible, I suppose. Yeah, it is visible efficiently and beautiful. So this is my opposite like Windows. Like, let me just go back up, and then we got model notes, right? And we have thinking and systems. Oh, it's opening up here on the entirely different screen. I don't want that actually for some reason. Let me just take it to here. I think I've already got opened up. Problem to fix. Thinking, oh, I already got that opened up in the past, I guess. Right. So this is the notes I took of the book, right? And this is the book that we'll be reading. So I did actually start with the book, and the reason was that I started like without telling or without coming to this into the screen, because I was actually reading it in the past, and at that time I hadn't decided to stream my learning, right? So this is like one of the most essential books that talks about feedback, how society, how humans, how different organisms functions, and it kind of like explains us how people maintain stocks, but not just stocks, but how those stocks interact. And now you'll say, oh, what exactly is a stock? But over time, when you realize that stock is literally everything, you can represent stock in terms of states, you can represent stock in terms of a lot of different things, right? So if I were to go back up, right, and okay, we are here, and I think reading from PDF is far better than reading from the normal physical book. Like I have all those, like once again, I'll say I have all those books. But if you ask me after reading all those books, what would you do? Would you read through a PDF on a monitor or a screen, or would you read a physical book? Go for the PDF on a monitor and a screen. You can take notes, you can highlight a lot of stuff, you can quickly search it up, you can quickly go back to a book, you can have hundreds of books in the same folder, and you can just open them in less than a second, and then you can just search and get to the point where you want. PDFs are just way better. I mean, I don't know why people still, like, I get it, reading from like sitting on a chair through a book or a bed, like it feels more relaxing and comfortable, but in the long term this one works better, right? So I think I should be giving a slight summary of the book. Like, let me just search it back again. I should be giving a slight summary of the book, because I think that is the most important thing. And to be honest, now that I'm realizing on the stream, I don't speak this much. My throat is dry. Ah man, I'm not like used to speaking this much actually. I speak low, I guess. I should take a note of this and get about a lot of, I don't know, whew, bottles, water bottles, so that I don't actually suffer with this kind of thing from now onwards. As of now, no one's watching the stream, which is something I already expected. I mean, like 0 views are there. That means no one's is coming in. I did expect that it will take about an hour or something for at least 1 or 2 views to come in. So yeah, it's going as I expected. But it would have been good if it come like if the views come really fast, right? Because like that kind of like gives you the motivation to do a better job at the stuff or something. Yeah. Mm, I think. Okay, I'm tired. It's morning, right? Uh, that's why I guess we are not having the muse, because like no one is free in the morning. That's why, and everyone's like at their job or at their school. But I only have the time to study and learn in the morning, right? I mean, I'm not that free. So yeah. So now I'll be giving I will be summarizing the book then again. All right. So we've got like a lens, right? So let's just switch it back again. All right. So we got the book here. I just don't need that. I think, yeah. So we got the book here at the center, and I think you guys can see it, right? So let's just start. I mean, I've already took the notes, and I'm gonna revise the notes first, and then we're gonna just hop back right into the main topic, right? So as of like how everything is like. So if I were to open up the notes and for you guys to clearly see them, like, okay, a system generally goes on being itself, changing slowly, if at all, even with the complete substitution of its element, as long as interconnection and the purposes remain intact, which is exactly what Donella means. It's like, okay, first of all, what is systems? Okay, systems have inherent property, right? I mean, for example, let's say I punch punch the monitor and the screen of the monitor breaks, right? And then you'll say, okay, and then I ask you a simple question: why do you think the screen of the monitor broke? All right. And you'll say it's because I punched it, right? That's why the screen broke. But that is not true, because let's say if I take my hands and if there's a wall at the back, or here, if I punch the wall, right? If let's say like here's the wall, like just right here, if I punch the wall and wall didn't broke, right? And my hand broke, and now you'll say, okay, why did my hand broke? Because I punched the wall. That means punching isn't doing the job. It's the screen that holds some innate properties that is causing it to break when I'm punching it, but the wall holds certain different properties that is not allowing it to break when I'm punching it. I'm doing the same thing with the different objects, but at the end of the day, the outcomes is different depending on the what system I'm interacting with. Right? This is a simple thing that Donella says. And so this is like systems hold latent properties, right? They have their own certain specific, like the same goes for the phone, same goes for this monitor here, same goes for like all like the whiteboard or the stuff in the background. Everything holds its own certain and latent property. Okay, my brother's messaging, but yeah, let's just so that is the properties, right? And then they talk about interconnection and purposes remain intact, right? So what they're talking about is like even if a system, let's say for example, this is like a basic system, you won't consider a wall a system because you're not a system thinker like at the start. That's why considering a wall a system and a monitor a system, you'll just consider monitor a monitor and a wall. Like you wouldn't gonna consider a system, right? But now we're gonna get into more and more into the system like thinking lens. Right. But before we even got into that, like, let's just take simple systems, for example, education systems, right? Like we have bureaucratic systems, but let's go with the education system because they're easier to understand and everyone have been a part of it. So now imagine like, like even if like this is what Danila says, as long as its interconnection and purposes remain intact, if you can see at the screen, like what's Danila trying to say here. All right. So it's like it doesn't really matter like in a school if the teacher changes, if the principal changes, if the let's say the classroom or the furniture changes, as long as the interconnection and the purposes remains intact, the school will remain intact. Like for example, you can have the same school, the same people, the same teachers, the same everything same, but you change the purpose. The purpose of the school is to raise criminals, right? Then you have to change courses and that's all you have to do, right? And that slight change and that the purpose changes, like a slight purpose changes, and you have an entire different system, right? Because now system has to change depending on the purposes. That means interconnection has to change, and sometimes interconnection doesn't really change, but as long as you change the purpose, the company changes. For example, an AI company optimizing for revenue would actually focus more on the things that actually generates the revenue, whereas an AI company that is like optimizing for something else, let's say just like better responses, would optimize for something else entirely. This people are the same, the company is the same, the CEO is the same, but the interaction changes their behavior in a certain way. Like the purpose which changes interaction and their behavior in a certain way. So that's like how system changes. But then again, if as long as the purpose of the company is to actually generate revenue, right, then even if the people changes, the CEO changes, the system remains the same, right? Because the CEO is a component of the system, right? It is not the system, or neither he's directing the system. For example, let's say there's a biological system, like here I have, right? I'm a human, right? And I have body parts. There's interconnection between them, and there's like I'm a biological system, right? And now what are the interconnection? You'll say, oh, you have a heart, you have a brain that's currently thinking right now, and then you have a brain that's reading something. I'm getting an input, I'm making sense of it, I'm using my hands to explain that thing, right? I'm actually looking at the screen, and for that I have eyes, right? I have hairs and to protect me from the cold most probably, and then I have hands which can do some crazy stuff within themselves. So these are all interconnectedness. And what is the purpose? The purpose biologically is simple: to survive. That's pretty much it, right? To survive and to live a comfortable life, and if not comfortable, then to live a life where I'm not in misery and in pain. That's to avoid suffering, I guess, and to persist. To persist specifically, that's what gene are trying to optimizing for. If you just to take selfish gene and evolutionary biology for there for a sec, but that is not the part of the book right now. So you see, interconnection can change. You can transplant like a new kidney, like take my kidney out, transplant it to someone else's kidney, take my heart out. I think there are some open heart surgeries, if I remember, and they have been cases where have been successful, right? But in the most of the cases, I guess it's not successful. But so you can take that out, you can replace it with something else, right? You can change you can cut my hand off, and like let's say if you have even like good enough technology, you can replace it with electric one, or a new like someone like something. But it's like all the different things are changing, but the purpose remains the same, and the purpose is to persist. So system can change significantly to the point they're irrecognizable from the past selves, but still they will be considered the same systems because they still have the same purpose, or if not the same purpose, they still have the same way of actually navigating and maintaining stocks, and maintaining stocks and navigating and feedback loop comes later. So we're going to talk about that later. right? And this connects to everything, like from education to bureaucrats to to sports team. Like everyone has, like, there's an interconnection between them, for example. And how these interconnection happen is really really important. For example, if you had a like team of like a pair of five, right, and they have a ball and they're like playing the game, there's just one rule that says like you cannot touch the ball, and that becomes football. But there's another rule for it, which is like you cannot touch the ball with the legs. You're only allowed to touch it with hands, and that game just changed into basketball, right? It's like people can be same, like, interconnections can be different because there are some different rules, and purposes also can be different because now there are different rules and there are different purposes, which changes the everything into like a different thing, I guess, right? So yeah, and now we are on to the second point. I mean, I think I already explained the majority of the starting part, so we don't have to worry about it anymore. But yeah, if the interconnection changes, the system may greatly alter. Like, this is exactly what Donella says. If you change interconnection, like, the systems get altered. It may even become unrecognizable, even though the same player on the team changed the rules from those of football to those of basketball, and you've got, as they say, a whole new ball game. All right, so I give the same like this example, and now we have like, if you change the interconnection in trees, say that instead of taking in carbon dioxide and emitting oxygen, it does the reverse. It no longer be a tree; it will be an animal, exactly. So, if in a university the student graded the professor, or if the arguments were won by force instead of reason, the place would need a different name. It might be an interesting organization, but it would not be a university. Changing the interconnection in a system can change it dramatically. Interconnection cybernetically means state transition. Right. So interconnection cybernetically means state transition, but I think we won't be getting into that because that's like connecting a different book into this book. But yeah, a change in purpose change a system profoundly, even if every element in interconnection remains the same. I just said that the same thing. I just gave you all the like, yeah. That means if we change the feedback loop that a system is optimizing for, the structure of the system would change dramatically. Right. So, okay, this one is actually good. So, but we are still not on the topic of feedback loop, then means like we won't be discussing about this line. But yeah, because the system prefers the feedback that stabilizes it. Oh, we still haven't got a single view. What's happening? I mean, is that really take that much time? We've been streaming for 22 minutes and we still haven't got a single view. That is all right. Because a system prefers a feedback that stabilizes it and it loops around them, so it will alter reality in a way to achieve the feedback it wants, which is again kind of true, but we are still not on the topic of feedback, so let's just not get into that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because the system prefers the feedback which stabilizes it and it loops around them, so it will, like, yeah, I've got that point. Changing just one leader at the top from like Berzov to I don't know how to pronounce that, or from a Katsu to a Reagan may or may not turn an entire nation into a new direction, though its land, factories, and hundreds of millions of people remain exactly. A leader can make the land and those factories and people play a different game with new rules, or can direct the play towards a new purpose, which is kind of a true, right? Because it's like how one component is so important in an entire system, and that new purpose would be what regulates the leader towards stability. Hence, an entire system would lose its direction, which is true, as long as the sum of it all influences. Now we are topic of the like, yeah, and now I think from here we are actually starting to get in the direction of like stocks. So let me explain what stocks are. Stocks, right? So here's where it kind of gets interesting a lot more than it was already kind of interesting, I suppose. But what are stocks? And for that, I've actually drawn it already for you, which is here. Right, we can have okay, we just need to, let's just say, del them. Could you get away, buddy? Wait, what? Yeah, it wasn't getting selected. I kind of, if I take a box, okay, actually not a box. Let's just del this again. Like, let's just take this. Like, you can look at the screen, and if I just like, yeah, let's just name it stocks. And let me just change the size to Excel. Okay, this is already the max size. Then I just have to zoom in slightly bit and shrink the box so that I get the maximum. Yeah. So you have stock. So now you'll be wondering, okay, what is stock, Varik? And this is where it kind of gets really, really interesting because, I mean, stocks are literally everywhere. Like, stocks are everywhere. So, for example, from this mic to this laptop to this monitors to this camera to this phone, everything could be considered as a stock. For example, phones in a company, stock. Mics in a company, stock. For example, the red blood cells or the white blood cells in your body, stock. Like the amount of neurons in your brain, stock. Right, the amount of people in a population can be considered as a stock. Like literally everything could be considered as a stock. All right, everything, literally everything could be considered as a stock. And this is the best part about stocks, right? Because everything could be considered as a stock, we can actually try to connect the dots between everything. Stock allows us for that. So, for example, think of people in a population which we consider as a stock. Like, imagine how that would flow, right? For example, there's an inflow in that thing. And now you'll say, okay, what is an inflow? And I would say inflow is nothing but an incoming, right? I mean, so for example, we have this, and let's just say we have this, right? And let's just say we have this. Yeah. Actually, this is causing me a real problem, but I'm not gonna pay much mind to it. Yeah. So we got a inflow, and then we got a outflow. I think outflow doesn't necessarily need to be that big. Outflow. So what is inflow and outflow? So amount of people. So right now we are taking like stocks, but like we can take anything. Like we can take population. We can take red blood cells. We can take like literally anything when it comes to stocks, like literally anything. And this is not the spelling of population is. Like it could be literally like when I say anything, like a people in a company. You could have like the cars in a showroom. You could have like atoms in a room, or like the particles, or like oxygen on earth. Like like you can literally have anything, like literally anything, right, as a stock. Like it's just like what do you like? Yeah. So these are all the stock we have, but stock have inflows and outflows. Now this is where everything starts to get interesting, right? So as an inflow, like for example, I'm sitting in this room and there's like AC in the background. If you can see, can I make you guys see that a little? Like, I think you guys can see it. So we've got this AC in the background, right? Let me just quickly focus on that, which is kind of like providing some sort of if I know, like, yeah, some sort of an air to the room, right? And it's a cold air, and the room has like a hot air or something. So we have a stock of hot air in the room, and the inflow is like where the stock is coming from. It's coming from the AC, and the where like, and then we have the outflow. Okay, the outflow means, if you look at the screen, the outflow means where the stock is going. So it's coming from there, it's staying in the room, and then from these doors that you can see, like the three doors, there's like a slight gap. Like, a very, very small amount of like at the bottom, we have the gap, and from the gap, the wind flows out, right? So you have constantly an inflow of the wind from the AC, and then we have these doors that actually constantly kick that, like, they don't purposefully kick it out, but it's like, and then we have this window here too. So all of this actually adds up. So you have like an inflow from the AC, and then you have a stock, which is the air in the room, and then you have an outflow, and outflow is going from the like the bottom line from the doors. You have the same thing in economies. So for example, you have inflow. All right. Oh, I'm like, okay, there's still no one in the stream. Huh? That's all right. So you have people in a population, which is a stock. Inflow is birth, so how much people having a sex and giving birth to children. The outflow is death, right? So it's like the stock is changing. The inflow, like how it comes to be, the inflow, and how it goes out to be or ends to be is the outflow, right? So remember that. And now this stock, how this stock influences, like, let's say bacteria, or like, let's say small microorganisms, right? So each time, or like, earthworms, so each time there's like these people, right, and these people die, which is the stock, like, the people in the population are the stock, they die, and they become the inflow for, let's say, insects and bacteria and small organisms that actually feed onto the dead body of humans while you bury the humans, right? Because there's definitely a lot of animals who feed onto that. So they feed onto that. You see what I'm trying to say here? And this is the most important, the best part, is that there's and they, like, this becomes the inflow, which is like a for them. So our deaths become an inflow for them as a food, and like we become the stock. And again, like for example, this outflow right here, guys, as you can see, becomes another inflow. Okay, Control Z. Actually, no. Can I not stop it? For some reason, it's just okay. Could you just Oh, I see. I can't select anything when I'm like that. Actually, let's just delete you. Right. So now we have an outflow which becomes an inflow for another stock, right? This is another stock. And I can name this stock, like, let's say food, right? And let me just food, right? And this food here, this food becomes like a, and then where is this food is going? And then there's another, if like, yeah, which is, if I were to add it, another, which becomes, there's an outflow. So this inflow right here becomes like an outflow. Sorry, this outflow becomes like an inflow, right? So this right now here is an inflow. And this is definitely the one that comes the next, is definitely like an, like, the when the organisms eat food, right? So this food, like, turns out to be the food for them, so they're eating it. So eating becomes an inflow, and then they shit out, like they poop or they die too. So like the it's getting distributed onto the ground, right? So they're eating, and or maybe they are like, they consume the food and they're like eating and using it to convert into energy and using it for themselves. Eating and shitting kind of like decreases the food, right? And this eating and shitting, and when they die, like, because every organism, insects and all of them die, they becomes like a micronutrients for our trees to actually observe, right? So this becomes another inflow, because it was an outflow at the start, because we had like, so like inflow becomes like our debts, like outflow was the debt. So let me just modify that for a sec, right? So we have here, so which was like our debts, DEATH, right? That's it. Which becomes the inflow for the food. And now here, this again, once again, becomes like, this is an outflow, right? So if you were to say, let's go, this is an outflow. But then again, it is not as the simple, because this outflow once again becomes the inflow, which is inflow. And this inflow then again feeds onto something else entirely different, which is like plants or something like that. And then plants get eaten by, if I were to have another, what do we say? Two. Yeah. Right. So we have like, yeah, and this goes on to feed onto like, let's say plants, right? So plants are now consuming nutrients from the soil, because these people are eating or shitting, and at the same time, let's just add, because they are not just eating and shitting, they are actually dying too. All of that they're doing with their foods is like causing like plants to actually get there. And then these plants are consumed by the very humans, right? So we have that too here, like these plants are consumed by humans. Then like, yeah, we can have these plants are consumed by, then again, like there's an outflow, which is like consumption, so they are getting eaten up. Plants are the stock here right now. Let me just rename that to stock. It's stock, just like how the food was the stock, right? For a better understanding, I suppose, like how we also have this as a stock, right? So we have all those, and now this is gonna, and then over time, what happens? Like it's gonna like getting into this loop of like getting back to human again. which was like the inflow in the population. So humans would feed it. So you can see it starts to form a cycle. It's still at the early age. We're still at the inflow and the outflow. And this is not exactly how the dynamic play out, as we all know. But it's like a simplified compression version to actually make you see how one stock is constantly getting updated and kind of like removed, how stocks are constantly increasing and decreasing, just like a bucket in a water, if you were to imagine, right? Just like how, like, yeah, so they're constantly increasing, they're constantly decreasing over time, right? If I were to draw, let's say something, let's say there's this stock, right? It's like a imagine the control Z. Let's say there's a water, right? Like it's like currently it's this, because more birth rates happen, this increases to this amount. More birth rate happens, it increases, and like, yeah, there's no limit to stocks. Like it can just keep on increasing over time as the time goes past by. Like it can just keep on increasing, or it can just keep on decreasing. Like endangered species, over time it can just keep on decreasing, right? It can just keep on decreasing, or it can just, like, yeah, and after some time it's so little that it's almost about to end. This is what happens with endangered species. This is what happens in a lot of processes, like in civilization and in factories too. When you're having a lot of hard time to find new workers, and the old workers are consistently leaving, so they don't have the workers, so they don't have the capital, to actually hire more workers. So now the workers are keeping on leaving. They don't have the capital to hire more, and each time a worker leaves, the capital itself decreases, like the money the factory earns. So over time, whatever happens is like, you know, the more the people that leaves, the more the revenue decreases, and more the revenue decreases, the more the people ends up leaving. So this is something called a runaway feedback loop, which is gonna understand just later, about a couple minutes once we get started with the basics. So we already got the basics, I guess, right? So this applies, right? So this is what it is, and this applies to everywhere. This applies to factories, this applies to businesses, this applies to a family, and the food that you guys have in as a stock, and how that stock influences. Like, for example, a good and healthy diet would actually give you a good and healthy brain, which actually give you good and healthy productivity, which actually give you good and healthy grades, which actually goes on to increase your mood in a good and healthy way, which is going to make you buy more good and healthy food, which is going to increase. So it's like these things starts to loop over time. I created a very, very short loop in order for you to understand how these things can start to actually loop, but they start looping, which is one of the most essential part of this, like feedback loops, because feedback loops. That's the main point. But we are still not on the topic of feedback, right? If the sum of all outflows equals to the sum of the stock level will not change, it will have dynamic equilibrium at wherever level its head had to be. So, for example, imagine a bathtub, right? In this system, we have like a water coming in and the water going out through the drainage, right? So we have like from the like, yeah, so the water coming in, if the water coming in is like through the pipe or something, is equal to the water that goes out, that means it would hold an equilibrium, right? The stock that comes in, that when inflow, what Danella is trying to pretty much say here, when inflow is outflow, I think that's pretty much makes sense and self-explanatory, not the hardest thing to understand. But so yeah, so what Danella is saying, when inflow is equals to outflow, like oh, was there a function like that? Oh no, there wasn't any function like that. So when inflow and outflows are equal, what pretty much happens is like stock remains the same. But actually, rather than typing this here, I thought, like, write it here. You can see here better. All right. When inflow is equals to outflow, stock remains the same. All right, guys. So this is another thing that we just saw. Right. If information-based relationships are hard to see, function or purpose are even harder. Right. A system function or purpose is not necessarily spoken, written, or explicitly, except through the operation of the system. Now, this is actually a really good thing a really good thing that she kind of like adds, because a lot of time we don't really know like anything about the system. Like, yeah, And actually, guys, there's literally no one joining the stream. Aha, at this point. I think I should take 5 minutes break. I've been like speaking for the last 40 minutes. That is not my habit of like, yeah. I think I'll soon enough within a week or a month I would get a habit of speaking for 4 or 5 hours a day or something. But like, yeah, 40 minutes is really hard for me. Just a 5 minute break. Is YouTube even recommending my stream to someone? If YouTube is not recommending, I'm fucked. But yeah, I can do this for a month or something, and after that, like if no one actually joins after a month, of course humans do lose motivations, right? But I think that's like how long I can actually sustain this without anyone watching, because then my brain would think, oh, it's just better to read by yourself than to actually stream it. Hmm. Hard to say of function purposes, even a functions, a system functions or purposes not necessarily spoken, written, or expressed explicitly, expect except through the operation of the system. And now that I think about it, over time, if I actually stream, if I keep on saying things like this, what will happen is like my ability to actually understand stuff would increase significantly, right? So like, because I would be thinking, okay, how does I explain this kind of concept to someone else that doesn't know shit about it, right? So that would allow me to compress the concept and allow me to explain it in a more simplified way. I think this is what they call Feynman technique. Like, I did got a Feynman book back in high school, right? It's there. Yeah, but it's a good book about explaining some basics of everything, of atoms, of thermodynamics, like basics things, I guess. Huh. Damn. Hmm. I'm gonna use the washroom, guys. Actually, now that I visualize it, I even have a better idea about this. Like for real. Okay, the views are still stuck at a. It shows no data. Why is it showing no data? Damn it. Wait a sec. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Don't tell me in the last 43 minutes it haven't been recommending my video to anyone. Are you shitting me? Mm-hmm. Okay, my dad's calling me. He doesn't call me in the morning, but yeah. It still shows 0 views. Damn, someone. Watch it. Okay, just kidding. Mm-hmm. Damn, I actually did create a good thumbnail, honestly. Like 1,000 days of understanding reality. Damn, was but like it was cool, wasn't it? Not the best, but yeah. And I think I've done a better job at creating another. You know, I should create a playlist, which is called like yeah. Let me just create a new playlist, which is called. Okay, I'll create it later. I think it's like a small work I have to do. I should add it on my to-do list. Create a playlist for both. Eating. Yeah. So my first stream is like out. This is my first time ever streaming. I think that's why they stream on Twitch rather than directly streaming onto the YouTube, because on stream a lot of people like stream recommends your stream more or something, like Twitch recommend your stream more or something. I don't know. Or do you need a like a yeah, I don't know. But whatever. I think over time it's all right. I mean, it's really all right. I think it just takes time. Hopefully, that I just have to do 5 or 10 streams before I get my first 10 or 20 views, and I just need that much. I mean, like yeah, let's start small, baby. I find that I also like I was about to say baby. Let's start small, baby, and then I'm like, no, let's not say that. I still ended up saying it though. Huh. Uh, but I mean, this kind of looks beautiful. 0, 0, 0, 0 concurrent views, zero chat rate, 0 views. I mean, okay, let's get back to topic. Which is of course our a simple topic, which is yeah. So we did understood. Actually, this gives also about me to start to understand. I mean, I should actually complete this because it's going to give you guys a better view of actually how the things are happening, and me too, honestly. Right. So you have plants, and these plants are like the outflow here becomes like human eating thing. Right, because human eat plants consistently, which becomes here our outflow. Let me just shrink this. No, not you actually, buddy. No, not you. I think this is like the normal size that I have. Yep. Human eating becomes an if I were to add an 8 outflow. Right. But then again, we have human shitting. Now you'll say, well, what the hell? Right. So humans also shit. So we have another outflow. If I were to say, like, yeah. So we have eating because they eat now, right? Yeah, because they consume. This becomes the inflow. Right. The stock, this becomes the outflow, and out this outflow, humans eating becomes the inflow for digestion, for energy. So we have energy levels that we try to maintain. Right. Same goes for the plants. Same goes for these animals. Like the food here. Like I think yeah, rather than saying like this is energy too for animals. Like that's what you pretty much do from the food in itself. That's what calories and carbohydrates are all like doing. Like you need glucose for this brain to actually work. So you got energy, but and this energy constantly kind of like gets decreased, right? Because you have eating, so that means there's another outflow that actually appears from here, right? We have outflow, but then there's another outflow that actually feeds onto this stock here, right? And it's like because stocks are becoming inflow and outflow for each other, like yeah. So if you were to take about a arrow, right? Let's per se phi, right? That's the and this like becomes like a like let me just sorry, not you actually, but here, right? And this becomes like this is the inflow here. So this goes back into this, which actually increases to like human eating. Actually, no, I got it really, really wrong. Human eat, that's kind of obviously true. But there's one thing humans do the best. Guess what? Now you'll know what they do the best. Just right now in a sec. What humans does the best is They shit. Right, guys? Like, okay, they shit. And that shitting, once again, is a stock, becomes, uh, like, let's go with the phi, right? Becomes this. Like, yeah. So we can have a pretty good structure here. As you can start to see how stocks are constantly interacting with each other, right? And this energy expenditure gets used, of course, because you're living, and living takes energy, just like, let's say, studying, right? So we have another stock, right? Let's say, which is like labor or something. And now you'll say, how labor is a stock? That's just an activity. How can an activity be a stock, right? And that is kind of true, right? But then again, like, energy kind of like constantly goes on to doing this thing, right? So energy is constantly decreasing because there is an outflow, but outflow doesn't happen to be a stock. That's why it doesn't accumulate. Realize something? You do this, you punch. I'm literally using energy right now to move this hand to speak, and like literally, that's why I got sweaty and all that. Not sweaty, actually, thirsty. Right. So I got thirsty. I'm constantly using glucose, and that's why I had to take break. The energy levels are constantly decreasing, but it's not becoming a stock. There is an outflow. Remember, there is an outflow, but the outflow is not storing, or like, it's just an outflow. That's why, like, yeah, so we do have an outflow here, which is an open, like, you can call it an open or something, like an open loop or something, right? Here it is open, and we'll just add like a energy expenditure. That's all, ladies and gentlemen. So we have this here. So now the as the energy expenditure increases, right? The more energy, the more exercise you do. So energy expenditure in itself can become a stock, like I said, but it's not a stock because it doesn't accumulate. But then again, if you treat it like a stock, because at the end of the day, energy expenditure is like, let's say, 500 calories or something like that. That means if we treat it like a stock, even if it doesn't accumulate, here's the thing, here's the magic part. So we have energy expenditure. So now if we take, if I were to just tell you a simple thing, if I take this, and like, this is your control Z. This is your energy expenditure. We can call it EE, right, guys? We can call it EE. And okay, that doesn't look like E. And I'm thinking of buying another tool, by the way, for better editing, which is like a Vacom or something, or Webcom or something. It's like allows you to write, right? And that, in that sense, I can actually write while I'm streaming on here. So it wouldn't take that much time to actually draw these kind of graphs, right? It would be really efficiently fast because you're using it with the hand or something. But yeah, we have this here. So if EE keeps on rising up, let's assume if EE is keep on rising up, then, like, then human must actually get the more stock from the plant to make more energy to keep EE expenditure within a bound that he needs. So for example, if you want to sustain a gym, and this is why it connects to gym too, let's say, but for the first thing to tell you is to get enough protein, get a good diet, and get a recovery, right? So the thing is, like, if you are constantly burning a lot of calories, you need to eat the calories. If you are thin, if you are fat, then you don't have to. You have to actually just eat within like normal amount of food, because you need to burn more, and you need to let go of that fat belly, the unstored unnecessary fat that you're never going to use, right? So this is how it connects with the gym, right? So if energy expenditure rise, then the intake must also rise. That means shitting will also rise here, right? It's not just like how just change one stock or increase the one stock. If, let's say, I want to change energy expenditure, for that I need to increase the energy intake. For that I need to increase the human eating. For that I need to increase the stock that I'm getting from the plant. That means you need more plant. For that I need to actually increase the death rate. So if there's no death rate, then the plant would have nothing to actually, for that, like, only then the stock for these micro bacteria organisms would increase. And it's like how just energy expenditure needs everything else to increase. But then again, you can say, okay, there's a huge amount of stock, let's say, and when it comes to plant, there's, let's say, 10 millions of them, right? So even if your energy expenditure skyrockets, let's say you were a guy who was consuming 500. Oh, I was saying all that without showing my face or the screen. But no one fixed it. I mean, because I wasn't live. But I would say it again, right? I would explain it again. It's all right. These kind of mistakes happens, and now I've got feedback, so I'm not gonna make this mistake again. and it's good that no one was watching this. But yeah, so we have human eating, which is an outflow, which goes into energy and energy expenditure. So if I increase, this is what I was saying, guys. If I increase the energy expenditure, right, like what happens over time is like I need to increase human eating too. I need to increase like the shit. Like yeah, he literally needs more time to shit now. I need to increase the plant consumption. I need to increase like animal and all this dying. I need to increase the stock that comes from the death of the humans. Like I need to increase everything. Right? I literally need to increase everything. And here's the best part. Even if you do increase the energy expenditure, the best part is that you doesn't have to increase anything at all. Now you'll say, what? Like you just said we need to, because plants are already millions, if not billions of plants out there. Like there are a lot of them. We have forests and like yeah, we do cut them. We have like agriculture's like big land with a lot of I guess agriculture going on there. So we have all that, right? So we already have all of that. That's why like if you are someone who consumes 1,500 calories a day, like I think it's KCL, right? Something like that. 1,005. That means your height is probably around 5'7" to 5'6". I mean 5'6'7" or like yeah, somewhere about that is your height because like yeah, if you are like have a bigger height, you need more. Or actually, you're even shorter than that. You're not 5'6" or you're like a 5'5" maybe or 5'6", yeah, or maybe even less than that. Right. This is, but if you are someone like me who's like 5'11" and goes to gym, right, for that energy expenditure pretty rise. In the past, I used to consume about 1,800 calories to 2,100, right, KCL. But then I realized if you are actually increasing your energy expenditure, if I'm burning a lot of energy, right, if you are increasing this little boy here, then you have to increase this intake by a lot, by a big margin, right? But okay, by a big margin. So now it's, guess what? It's about 3,000 calories. Like that's my current diet. But of course, I'm not able to consume all that. It's still early stages. So I consume about 2,700 to 2,800. But some days, like this is my daily consumption, but some days it increases all the way to, I guess, 3,000. So you're getting what I mean, right? But now you'll say, okay, you have doubled your energy expenditure, but still we don't see any problem. And the reason why we don't see any problem is because the amount of food, the amount of production that humans have achieved is so high that I don't have to give a shit or worry about increasing the plants, increasing the, I don't have to worry about. There's 8 billion people, man. So many people die every day. Agricultures are going, like growing. So all of this like doesn't take any energy from me. So this is like the best part about all this. Right, so I think we already got the basics of how influence stock flows are influencing each other. If you are someone who's actually into business, market, science, mathematics, anything, you can actually start using this framework, this model right now. And I think we already got the first model of this video integrated. Right, so I should go to, yeah, here. And this is day one. We book studies are 0. Concept integrated. I think like I already started with 1, but we got stock and how stock influence each other. So we got like our 1 first, concept integrated. I think that's a like good achievement for the first thing. Like yeah, and the current like the concept wasn't actually feedback loops. It was like stocks. We still haven't got to that, like So yeah, now yeah, we've already got the basics. Really got like yeah, a stock takes time to change because flow takes time to flow. Now this is a revolutionary line said by Delish, right? This is something you'll only start later realize later on, which is like a big thing. Because what happens is like if the stock is changing, guys, if the stock is changing, what happens is like it takes time to change. For example, if you had a belly of 5,000, like I don't know how many calories you have stored in your belly. You have a lot of fat, not calories, a lot of fat stored in your belly, and it takes about a couple of months for it to get removed, right? Because you've been storing for years. This is what it is. If you have a lot of water in your bathtub, it takes a lot of time to get out, right? If you have, and this is what people don't realize. If you have a brain with a very intense neuroplasticity that has accumulated over the decade, which a topper has, that's why they are able to study 6 to 8 hours a day at like increasing it all the way to 10 or 12 hours when there's stress and when there's exams. This is what the most important part about all that is that they have accumulated the neurological states over the decades. So if you're someone who isn't even used to study 1 hour a day and suddenly think or decides that I should study at the age of 35, it would take a lot of time for you to become that. not weeks, not months. It takes years. Just like how you go to, like, I have this body. Like, okay, let me just show you something, guys. Let me just show you. Like, I've been going to gym for 1 month, and like in the past, this wasn't as thick as this thing right here. Right, it wasn't as thick as this thing, but I've been going there for 1 month, and this is all I got in 1 month. I mean, if like this is the time accumulation, the muscle accumulation takes a lot of time. It takes time, it takes energy, and it takes efforts. And this is what people don't get. Like, I'm able to study 4 hours a day, or let's say 5 hours a day. That's my peak. That's my peak. Like, this is what I can sustain regularly. I cannot sustain 8 or 10 hours. Like, like study. And I do believe that after 4 or 5 hours of studying, you have like non-proportional, like the decrease, like the return on studying is like really low at the starting 1 or 2 hours. The return are really intense, but as the more time goes by, like the more you study, you don't get like the maximum return because the brain is tired, the glucose is limited, so it's not able to reconsolidate memory better. And that is entire neuroscience we got there. I'm not going to get into that, but that's why you have diminishing returns after 4 or 5 hours of studying. That's why I don't recommend it go more than that. And if you are going more than that, then do it in chunks. In the morning, go for 4 or 5 hours. At the night, go for 2 or 3 hours. That's it. More than 8 hours sleep is just like it's just you're doing it for a sense of self, or a sense of like simple that, oh, I study 10 hours plus day or something. You don't. 8 hours is already at the peak of biology. Not no Actually, 5 or 6 hours is already at the peak. Beyond that, there's diminishing return. I would never recommend that. But yeah, people often underestimate the inherent momentum of stock. This is what people don't get. The toppers are able to study, right, for so much. And it's not just about, it's about the gym people are like, they have been training for about a year. Even if now what happens, this is the best part. Now, even if they quit gym for about 6 months, all the muscles they've built, they are not gonna just go away. All the neurological state you have built, they're not just gonna go away. All of the addictions, and this is why system thinking interacts so much with almost everything. If you have been doing something, if you have been repeating something, let's say you have been repeating, let's say, let me just draw something again. Like, I should really get that drawing thing right. I can draw it like in a matter of seconds and explain a lot of things to you guys. But okay, let me just add another task to my to-do list, which is fix setup buy that thingy. Yeah, I'm just gonna buy it. Yeah. Could you just shut off? Yeah. Whew. I'm not used to speaking. I don't know how long for have I been live? 1 hour. Oh man, I've been speaking for at least 50 minutes. So we have like here we got another interesting thing, right? Let's say you are addicted, right? Right. So let's say you have a let me just draw it for you guys again, and this time I'm not gonna forget to share my screen, buddy. Okay, so we have a Control Z. I mean, right. So we have this thing here, right? Why does this thing look different to that thing? Okay, this is like a, let's say, investment into anything, but okay, my mic. This is dopamine baseline. This is your dopamine baseline. So for example, a person who's addicted have a above baseline. So for example, if I were to say like if I were to just draw it for you guys, it's like if you have this is, let's say there's a person and they have like a, like this is their baseline. Sorry, I'm not able to draw it efficiently, I guess you need thick lines to draw efficiently. Yeah, so this is their baseline, like, yeah, and if someone is out there, that is their baseline. Like if we take, like, this is their baseline. These baseline are different. Someone is working at a really low baseline. Someone is like, so what is dopamine baseline? Okay, dopamine is not reward chemical or something. That is just bullshit. Pop psychology bullshit. If you have read a little bit of like neuroscience or anything like that, you'd know it at this point. It's just bullshit by masses. But I mean, like the pleasure chemical. There's no like dopamine is trying to reduce uncertainty in specific ways. That's the like research that we have got in the latest time. So that is not what it is, guys. So if you are into those things, people who believe that dopamine is just a pleasure chemical, it is not that. It has a lot of different jobs. But if you come back to the topic, dopamine baseline shifts on the basis of how much Instagram you consume, right? So we've got this. Let's just add another one of our stuff, which is like a novelty exposure, right? So you constantly expose yourself to novelty, which increases your dopamine baseline. So if I were to draw that again, my friends, that would be something like control that. That would be something like you constantly, right? Your dopamine baseline shifts, and now what this happens is like your dopamine baseline keeps on getting up, right? And what this does is like this. I'm not able to explain this because for that I need to get into entire neuroscience and how that affects everything. That would be actually hard, actually. Yeah, for real. Mm-hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I won't be able to explain. But you can see it in novelty. The more you expose yourself to novelty, the more dopamine baseline shifts. And the more it shifts. So for example, you like about 5 years ago, it was something like this. But now for 5 years using like no five, just 1 year, it's above this. So now what happens? Dopamine baseline has changed. The more the dopamine baseline shifts, the more what happens is like over time, your ability to study, let's say, your ability to study would decrease. And the more the ability to study would decrease, the more you'll actually chase novelty, the more the dopamine baseline shifts, the more your ability to study decreases, right? So it's like over time, you would be here, and then over time, you would be so high up in the sky that studying and normal activities like going for a walk or drinking and like, and just sitting in a garden would feel like death to you, right? Literal death to you because you are not used to that kind of stuff at all. Right. And guys, it's time for my lunch right now, so I think I should actually quit the stream. Like, yeah, we did stream for about 1 hour 6 minutes or something, but yeah, thank you for watching. Like, yeah, because I think in the future when I am actually like have a lot of streams, someone would go in the past and would watch a stream if they like me or something. So if you are that someone who comes from the future and watch the stream, thank you for watching, buddy. It means a lot. Literally means a lot. And like, yeah, there's some things that I didn't actually completed. Like for example, I wasn't able to explain this stuff because it's like hard to explain for me too, right? And we need feedback loops. Without that, we can't get into this stuff. We did explain how stock influences each other and how a system interacts, and then we did a simple math about calories or stuff like that, right? So which is related to how it affects like sports, how it affects like gym, how it affects like going to like doing resistance training and activities, and like just for a walk, like how walk influences the energy expenditure, and then that changes the amount of food you eat. Like, yeah, so we did a lot of good things today. So yeah, I think it's time to end, and I would be streaming. This is the day one, so we successfully got the day one. We explained one topic, and we already got one concept integrated into our systems or into my brain, not system, but which is a system in itself, right? Because this is what the book is all about, thinking in system right now. So thank you for watching up to this point, and goodbye.